All right, I know I've been promising this for a while. I lost my voice, so it's a week and a half, 2 weeks late. But my first impressions of the 3 to 18 by 44 Vortex Strike Eagle. So this is obviously a 3 power on the low end, 18 power on the high end, 44 millimeter objective. This does have a front focal plane reticle. And a lot of people are going to say, a 3 to 18, that's an awful big scope for an AR-15. Not really. A lot of the people that are saying that have a 2.5 to 10 on their rifle. So I'm giving up 1/2 power on the low end to gain 8 power on the top end. And when you compare this scope to, say, the primary arms 2.5 to 10 or some of the other scopes out there, it's really not a lot of weight difference or size difference. And you can say, well, I'll never use 18 power. And you might say that because you're inexperienced, because you don't know. So why might you want to have more magnification? Well, PID, self-spotting, more accurate ranging, or maybe you're going to crank that sucker up to read the mirage so that you can make a better wind call. A lot of different things come with shooting. And just because you can go up to 18 power doesn't mean you have to do your shooting on 18 power. In fact, I used to shoot PRS for years, sniper matches, whatever you wanted to call them, precision rifle matches of various kinds. And most of the time I'd shoot somewhere around 10 or 12 power for 90% of the targets. And the reason being is shooting unsupported or from barricades or things like that, you get a lot of wobble. And that lower magnification helps that wobble not be as noticeable, helps build confidence, makes it easier to shoot. But you will see most PRS shooters, most top shooters, are going to go with all the magnification they can on the top end. There's a reason for that. Doesn't mean you have to use it just because it's there. So keep that in mind whenever somebody tells you, oh, that scope's too big for an AR-15, ho-ho. They really don't know what they're talking about. If you can keep your field of view on the low end similar, it really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. In fact, this rifle originally had a Leupold Mark VI 3 to 18 by 44 on it, which was a smaller, lighter, more compact scope than this Vortex. But I had some problems with that Leupold that I won't get into here. So let's talk about the Vortex. This scope has a front focal plane reticle. This one is a Milrad version. It is the EBR-7C. I'll be honest, I don't particularly love Christmas tree reticles. I can use them just fine. I understand the advantages, but I've never actually had increased performance over using something more like a TMR, Gen 2 Mildot, H2 CMR, whatever. I prefer to have more of a clean sight picture than this type of reticle offers. I like to be able to see the trace, get more information. I just don't like that cluttered view. That said, this one's not particularly bad. I still don't like the trend of the floating dots in the center of the reticle. But it is what it is. I can make it work. It's not as accurate for me, but these aren't meant for bench shooting anyway. So what does it matter? So, yeah, the reticle, it works. I have no problem with it. It also has Milrad adjustments for the elevation and the windage. One thing I really like about this scope is that it is 10 Milrad per revolution. So you start out at 0, you're dialing up, you go to 10, and then you just dial up to 1, and then you know you're at 11. You dial to 2, you're at 12 on the second rev, so on and so forth. I really like that, because then you don't see a visual number that doesn't match what's going on in your head. It's a system based off of tenths. Why complicate it to have something stupid like 14 MRADs per revolution? Never understood that. It is a locking elevation turret, and it does have a zero stop. Zero stop is super easy to set on this, and it gives you half a mil down from your zero. So good enough for different loads, suppressed, non-suppressed, whatever. How does it track? Well, zeroing it in, I used the reticle to figure out where I needed to make my adjustment. And sure enough, it was within the minute of angle of the rifle, within its precision. So that's okay. I'm cool with that. I also shot a group dialing in between each shot up and down, and the group was slightly larger than what this rifle would average with that particular ammunition, but, you know, that's within statistical variance. That's within 2 standard deviations. So whatever, I'm not going to knock it for that. I didn't get to do a true tracking test with this gun on the one time I had it out. Actually, I've had it out twice at this point. I didn't get to do a true tracking test just because of the constraints of the range that I was shooting it at. But what I did do was dial and then hold. And there was a slight shift at 10 mils, which is a lot of adjustment. Now, was that because the gun was starting to get hot? Possibly. Was it noticeable to where a person wouldn't be able to hit a target? Not at all. So I can't say that I'm 100% confident with tracking on this compared to, say, my Smith & Bender or Night Force. But there was no glaring error that would lead to a missed shot. And like I said, that could have been because of mirage, from the suppressor getting hot, the barrel getting hot. Could have just been a normal shift. I don't know. I haven't got to do a full test on tracking yet. But so far, good enough. Now, the windage adjustment. Windage adjustment on this scope is just fine, and one thing I do really like about it is it's capped. So you have a locking elevation, you pull it up to turn it, and then you have a capped windage. And it's clearly defined where that windage re-zeros, so easy, good to go. In fact, all of the adjustments on this scope are pretty good. The magnification adjustment, it's nice and smooth. It has a fast focus eyepiece, and it has a side parallax adjustment. The only downside about this scope when it comes to adjustments is there's no rev indicator for the elevation, and there's no dead spots on the illumination. So it's constantly brighter, 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 off. There's no off position between settings. Not a fan of that, but what do you expect? This is a $800 scope. This isn't a $3,000 Smith & Bender or a Night Force. So, it's not bad. It does have a 34 millimeter main tube. I can give or take it. Doesn't really matter. It's probably there to provide a little bit more travel. Of course, the way that the zero stop works, I think you can get just shy of 3 revolutions out of it. So, more than you're ever going to use on your average bolt gun or AR-15. Let's see, what else? The side focus. A lot of people think the side focus is for focusing. It's really not, it's for parallax elimination. A lot of people have a problem when the numbers on the side focus don't line up with accurate yard lines. Well, it's not an error in the scope, it's that they're giving you a generic number there, because that is for eliminating parallax. Parallax is like looking through water, and the object you're looking through in the water isn't where it actually appears. Well, that's parallax. So what you want to do is you want to bring the real image along the same focal plane as the reticle in the scope. And you do that by bobbing your head up and down and looking for a shift between the reticle and the target. It really doesn't matter if your target's in focus or not if you eliminate the parallax. So those numbers are a generic number, and they're going to change depending on the atmosphere you're looking at. So somebody says, this scope lines up perfect with the numbers on the side. in wet atmosphere. It really doesn't matter because that can change. Hell, I can go out on a really cold day with thick air around here and they'll show one number, and then I'll go out midday on a hot summer day and it might be closer to, say, like 150 at 100 yards. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So if that's something that bothers you, you're going to have to get over it because that's not what it's even designed for. And then the fast focus eyepiece. The fast focus eyepiece, this is a European style. It works great. The purpose of the fast focus eyepiece, it's for making the reticle itself, not the image, to come into focus. And the way that you do this is you aim your rifle up on a blank wall or up in the sky with your eyes closed. Open your eyes. Is that reticle perfectly crisp? If not, adjust until it is. You don't want to spend more than a half a second looking at the reticle because your eye will actually focus and make that thing look crisp and clear. So adjust it properly, you'll get less eye strain and you'll be able to stay behind the scope longer without any problems. So what do I think about this scope? The glass is actually pretty decent. I had it with me alongside a Zeiss Conquest, which everybody raves about. Zeiss Conquest glass. It's an older scope from 15, 20 years ago that was highly praised. Well, the glass in this Vortex, they're calling it, I believe they're calling it ED glass. It's not truly HD glass. Some of the literature I've seen it referred to as HD glass. I mean, still probably Japanese glass assembled in China, I'm assuming. But it's actually pretty good glass. I didn't have noticeable chromatic aberration. There was good edge-to-edge clarity. It was as good as the Zeiss Conquest that I had beside me, looking through them both on a overcast day. Now, granted, that's pretty good days for optical viewing, but, you know, it's up there. This is better than the PST Gen 1 Vortex scopes that I have. So, glass-wise, pretty good for the price. You're getting a lot of features in this scope for $750, $800. And it's a well-thought-out scope. It's not perfect. I have my complaints. I wish it had a revolution indicator on the elevation turret. I wish it had off positions between illumination settings. You know, but overall, what do you expect? This thing punches above its price, to be honest. Now, this is not a full review. Some of my opinions could change on this scope. I've got approximately 150, 200 rounds through it so far, but I'm fairly impressed. I originally bought this scope planning on putting it on a rimfire or something like that really didn't need to have a super, super good scope on it. And I'm tossing around the idea of leaving it on my AR and getting rid of my PST 2.5 to 10. So there it is, my first impressions of the Vortex Strike Eagle. This is a higher quality scope than the previous generations of Strike Eagles, and overall, I'm looking at it pretty favorably. So check it out. Like I said, it's affordable. If you're a first responder, a veteran, law enforcement, you can probably get in on one of the pricing programs and actually get it significantly cheaper than MSRP. If you can do that, this is a hell of a scope for those prices. Bye for now.